Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining Legito's latest webinar. I'm John Holtz, Director of Business Development for Legito in North America. Today's topic is using Legito to drive your documents. We are very fortunate to be co-hosting our presentation today with our special guest and client, Jeremy Aber from Aber Law Firm. Jeremy has been practicing law for nearly 30 years as either a law firm corporate attorney or in-house as general counsel for several corporations. Aber Law specializes in representing software and SaaS companies, specifically contracting at a high volume in the ever-changing complex area of software law. Today, Jeremy will discuss with you the real tangible benefits resulting from the firm's use of document assembly automation, and looking forward, what he sees as the next steps to further improve operational efficiency at his firm using document automation. But before we get to Jeremy, let me first introduce my friend and colleague at Legito, Mark Settle, President of Legito in North America, who will provide a high-level overview of Legito and will highlight some of the system's latest features. We expect the webinar to go about 30 to 45 minutes. This will be a live webinar, but all questions are welcome. If possible, we'll address the questions as they arise, and if not, we'll save your questions and we'll address them at the conclusion of our discussion. And without further ado, I will turn the stage over to Mark.
All right, thank you very much, John. So like John said, I'm going to give a brief overview of Legito, including a bit of an overview of the company, the product, and a brief product demo, and then we'll turn the time over to Jeremy. So a little bit about us as a company. We started in 2014. We were started by a lawyer who was practicing law, also is a bit of a technologist, has some background in development, and was creating documents in a very repetitive fashion as a part of his practice, and said that there's got to be a better way to do this with these documents. And so he created a better way, looked into some other solutions, and decided to create his own process for templating and doing document automation. And that grew into what is Legito today. And so that product is now in over 50 countries and with many Fortune 500 companies. We have customers in all of the inhabited continents of the world. So we're a very multinational global company. And you can see a few of our customers there in the logos down below. So what is Legito? What is our product? We provide what we call a smart document workspace. A very big part of that is the document automation piece that Legito began as, right? This ability to create a template that is used to drive document creation. But that's not all it is. That's a large part of what you can do, but then you can also take those documents and you can manage them. You can manage them with metadata around those documents. You can walk them through workflow processes where users can negotiate or review and track changes with those documents, and then even have an approval process where certain users have to sign off on a document. Those workflows are customizable so that you can build them in the way that's needed for your specific documents. And then you can even share those documents internally and externally through the system, and even track deadlines related to those documents and view a full audit trail or a document timeline as those documents are created. And so that is the smart document workspace that is Legito, and we'll take a look at that today. Before I do that, since a big piece of that is smart document drafting, if there are people who are new to document assembly, a real brief explanation of this is, you start with your gold standard documents that you create on a regular basis in your business. And then you're going to take those and use Legito's smart template editor to create a template. And that template will allow you to build your business logic in that template. And so, hey, if I answer this question as in installments, then merge this language. Or if I answer this question as A, then include this paragraph, but B, exclude that and include this paragraph. So you can build that type of business logic and rules into that template so that your document is created correctly every time based on the input from the user. And then once I've got that template, I just use that template again and again to create my documents. And so what does that give me? That gives me this ability to reduce my drafting time significantly, maybe up to even 90%. So once I've got this template, I can use it over and over again. And all I'm doing is providing input. I'm not worrying about copying and pasting content or copying an old document and making changes. And then the other piece of that is risk reduction, right? The copy paste method of old documents is very error prone. If I'm doing find and replace, I might miss a spot and make an error that causes contractual issues or other problems within my business. And so two of those primary benefits of the smart document drafting is reducing your time and also reducing your risk. But then also, if I can manage this workflow and I can manage a review process within the system, I'm going to cut review times in half, maybe even more. I'm going to have a single place to go for all of that. And then I can also track and manage deadlines or other metadata and information that comes out of those documents. So with that, let's take a look at the product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a Smart Document Workspace, and I'm going to use two different browsers today just for an example of two different users. I'm currently logged into Microsoft Edge, and we're going to suppose that I am Chris Green for a moment. You can see Chris's little avatar logo here. And Chris is going to create a document in just a moment. But I am logged into a Smart Document Workspace. When a user logs into a Smart Document Workspace, you can see they land on a dashboard. At that dashboard, they're going to see recent documents that they've worked on or that have been worked on that are shared with them. And so here I can see, as Chris, I see 3 documents that I've worked on as Chris, and I can see one that Mark has shared with me and worked on recently as well. And on each of those documents, I can see a high-level overview. And then I can even click and expand and view that document record, which we'll do in a little bit. Down below that, I can see templates that are available to me. In this simple workspace, we've only got 3 documents available, and these are pretty simple examples that we'll use today for a brief demo. You can obviously create very complex contracts and documents in the system as well. I'm going to use an NDA today. So let's say that Chris needs to create an NDA with Blue Sky Inc. will be our fictitious company that he needs an NDA with. So we're going to say create, and create a brand new non-disclosure agreement for Blue Sky. So that launches the Legito document editor. So I've got that open on the screen here. A few things about this. So first of all, the majority of the screen, as you can see, is the document content itself. When a user is completing a document in Legito, they'll see the inputs and the questions right in line with the document content, and they'll be able to see that document change and be built as they're providing their input. That's the default behavior for how Legito works. You can create a form to simply gather the input elements as well and generate that document separately. But in the default behavior, the user is going to be able to see that document content right in line with the answers that they're providing. Here in the document editor, I can see along the top, I've got a menu with different tabs to view different information. If I'm going to review, I may want to review and turn on or off track changes. I can import data from another document or from a spreadsheet. And then I can also view different settings and turn them on or off. But up above that, I can see by my document name, I also see my workflow stage. So workflows, like I mentioned earlier, are customizable and can be assigned to different templates. And this particular template has a 5-stage workflow. We're in the draft stage, drafting that first draft of the document. And then at some point, I can move that into the review stage for somebody to review and approve that document. Then it might go into an e-signature process. And then once it's signed, it may be executed. And then if there is an expiration date, maybe I move that into an expired stage as well. I can see who the owner of that document is. And off to the right, I've got my kind of primary action. Do I want to save this document? You'll see it'll change to download once I've saved. And then I can share the document as well. On the left-hand side, I've also got some smart navigation to navigate through the document. And so you can see at the top here, I can see there's only 9 empty inputs in this document. So like I said, it's pretty simple. I've got some of those questions defaulted to a certain value, and the user is just going to provide some input, maybe change some answers and the dropdowns, and they're on their way with this document. And I can actually navigate to those inputs by clicking that button. So it'll take me to scroll me to that first input. I can also see warnings. So warnings can be built into the template, and warnings can just simply be a warning to the user, but they can also prevent certain things from happening. So for example, this disclosing party, you can see the warning there, must be completed to continue. In fact, this one is set up so that if I even try to save the document, it says, nope, sorry, you can't even save yet. You got to fill out that disclosing party before you can even save this document. And I can do things like require fields before I generate the document, before I can download the document, or before I can sign the document. So I really have some flexibility with requiring input from the user. So let's go ahead and input some data. So we'll go ahead and make this today's date. We'll clear out my form date. And we'll say our disclosing party is Blue Sky Inc. We'll leave them as a corporation, and we'll say, I don't know, setting up a data center as our relationship. So I'm going to go ahead and put that as a transaction data. And as I fill this out, I can just scroll down and see my document. And here's our first kind of question where the user can select an option. It's defaulted to only the disclosing party, But you can see I've got a few different options here, and I can change those. And if I change those, I'll actually see the document change. And so if I change it to sharing specific information only, then in this case, the way the template's set up is they'll see a list of specific information paragraphs that are included, and they can choose to leave them all in, but they might even choose to strike some of those paragraphs out of the document. And so I can build my document very quickly, strike or change language, and you can see the numbering is all automatic for what's staying included into the document. I can even set it up where, hey, maybe I want to type in my own additional item to add into this document, but I'm not going to. Anywhere along the way as well, especially when I get into a review process, if I'm going back and forth, I can add comments into this document, and the next person who views this document will see those comments and can review them and respond to them within the document as well. But let's go ahead and just finish this. We'll go ahead and say this is a specific date, 18 months out. So we'll go to here and type in 18 months. And we'll leave most of the rest of this as standard. We'll go ahead and fill out our address. And a phone number. And then we'll say our representative is Jane Green. She'll be the president. Jane at Blue Sky. We can fill out our disclosing party information. Scroll down. We've got just a few more fields to fill out here. Of course, if we'd missed anything, we could get it to scroll us right down to that empty input as well. We'll go ahead and say our governing laws in the state of Georgia. And we'll fill this out. So I'm down to the signature block. I'm done with this document. So the user now, Chris, has gone through, completed the document. He's provided all the necessary information, and he can see that document, what it's going to look like, save it, and he can even download that document to see what it's going to look like as well. So let's go ahead and say download, and we'll download a PDF version of this document. And so I get my PDF that I can open up and review. So there's my exported PDF document of my non-disclosure agreement. Nicely formatted, all the information that I've provided, and I know that it is, created according to the logic of the template. So the user simply answered the questions and got a nice generated output. But really what we want to do is walk this through the workflow. Maybe my manager now needs to review this. So what Chris is going to do is say, hey, I've drafted my document. I need to send this to my managers for review. I'm going to move it into the review stage. And you can see my primary action immediately becomes appoint approvers. Now this could be a fixed list so that Chris can't change it. And you can see it's already defaulted to the manager group. You can either have a fixed list or modifiable list of approvers. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as just the managers group, but I could add another user here and add them in as an approver and give them specific permissions. I'm going to go ahead and say create list. And with that, this is now in the review stage and has been appointed, and the approvers have been appointed for the review of this document. So with that, Chris is all done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this document for Chris. And we can even refresh here on his dashboard, and we'll see now he's got his NDA with Blue Sky, and it's in the review stage. And I'm going to switch over to Google Chrome. And I'm going to refresh there, and we'll see right here at the top is the NDA for Blue Sky. So now I'm logged in as me, and we'll say I'm the manager who needs to review and approve this document. So I can see this. I get a notification according to my notification settings from Legito, either in the app or an email, that I can click a link and view that document. But I'm just going to go ahead and say, I want to edit this document. And that takes me into that document, and I'm ready to make changes and review or approve this document. And you can see right at the top, my actions are approve or reject this document. Now I could go through and make some changes and reject this and send this back. In fact, as a part of this stage, track changes is mandatory. It's turned on automatically, and I can't change it. And let's say I change this to setting up a data center in Washington. Maybe I know what the change is that needs to be made. Well, as soon as I make that change, you can see here, track changes. So Legito has track changes. Anything that's changed in that document with track changes on will have to be accepted or rejected by those who have access to the document. And so I'm going to go ahead and accept it rather than sending that back to somebody else. And we'll go ahead and save, and then we'll approve this document. Once this has been approved, it's automatically moved into the signing stage, and the owner, Chris, will get a notification saying, hey, this is ready to go. It's been approved, and you can send this off for signature. Now, for brevity's sake, I'm not going to send this off via DocuSign. We will look at a document record that has a signed document attached to it, but I can move that into the signing stage and simply send it off either through DocuSign or through Legito's BioSign, where users would then sign that document. And once it's signed, it gets attached back into the document record as a PDF. And we'll look at one of those records in just a moment. So let's look at the document record itself. So we've been working with this NDA for Blue Sky. If I expand that document record, I want to point out a few things. So you can see here on the left-hand side, I've got a summary and some disclosing party, the transaction, the disclosing party representative. These key facts are data points that are being extracted from the document. In Legito, any piece of data can be tagged and extracted into this document record so that I have that data at a glance when I'm viewing the document record. And then on the left, on that left-hand side, you'll see also any deadline dates, if deadline notifications are turned on, any attached files. In the middle, I've got a messaging thread, and on the right, I can see an approval process. In fact, let's look at just a couple of other documents so we can see this employment contract. You can see here different metadata. It's a different type of document. I want to pull different information to see it at a glance. And then here you can see some use of that messaging thread. Janet and Emily created this document, and they sent some notes back and forth as they were working on it, going through a review process. So this document record gives me a nice full overview of the document. And like I said, let's take a look at one that's actually been signed. So this NDA with Silver Cube. You can see in this document record, I've actually got an attached file that tells me it was signed with DocuSign. And I've got the signed PDF attached that I can actually download and view and see the DocuSign signed document. So I can actually see both of the DocuSign signatures. This is my executed contract for this NDA. So finally, we've been able to walk through, and you can see those workflow stages that happen with those documents. You can see some of the document record pieces that you can attach there, so you can easily track metadata. Well, this is great, and in my dashboard, I can see all of this with my recent documents, but sometimes I need to go and view documents that have been worked on some time ago that maybe aren't at the top of this list. Maybe need to search and find a specific document, or even do some reporting against documents. And so with that, I can actually go to a Manage Documents page that lets me see all documents. Let's say I want to find the NDA that I did with Microsoft. So I can just come in and search for Microsoft. I can type that in, hit enter, and it's going to filter my list and find that specific NDA. So full text indexing across these documents as well. So I don't have to search just for metadata. I can search for a piece of text in the document, and it will narrow that down in those documents. I can also filter by different things as well. So for example, on the left-hand side, I can see my workflows for my different document types. In this NDA type, I can click review and see all of the NDAs that are currently in the review stage. I can even filter by specific pieces of metadata. So for example, the manager field that's available on the, I think it's only on the employment contract document, but I can see, okay, well, where are the employment contracts where Emily is the manager? So I check that and I can see it filters down to just those 3 documents. So I can easily find documents and take action on them quickly and view them. And then finally, I may also want to see, hey, what happened with this document? What's the history? Well, in my document editor, I can actually toggle between versions. So when I view a document in the document editor, I can see the versions in that view tab or review tab and even compare versions to each other. And then if I want to see a history of who did what when, I can also open up that document record. So we'll grab this Silver Cube that's executed and just go to timeline. And that will take me to the full timeline view for this document, where I can see every action that happened on this document. Who did what when, I can filter down by those events. And even for integration endpoints, I can catch a certain event and take some action. So if I wanted to, hey, once a document's signed, automatically send it to Dropbox. I could do something like that as well, using the integration endpoints that are provided by Legito. So I wanted to give you a brief overview. So this has been a quick overview over what Legito can do, just scratching the surface on some of the features and functionality that is available inside of Legito. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to our guest presenter, Jeremy from Aber Law. Jeremy, all yours.
Great. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through okay? Okay, great. So let me see if I can share my screen. There we go. So I just want to tell you a little bit about our use of Legito, run through a few topics. And so what's interesting is, I made up these three kind of main reasons, which very much map to yours, which is interesting, though they're worded a little differently. So fundamentally, we're a law firm. We represent software and SaaS companies only, in other words, vendors. And all we do is contracts, right? I started as a corporate lawyer working at a large law firm. I've been in-house at large software companies, small software companies, some venture capital firms, but always on the side of contracting. Never been to court, don't really want to, and so this has been kind of my focus. So what's been interesting is when I started practicing law a long time ago, I was just amazed how there was a repetitive process, but it was inefficient. Yeah, back then it was even when we were using, older computers and word processors, and a lawyer would often say, hey, go get a clause from this agreement and that agreement and put it in, and then add it to this. I mean, templates were just starting to be used. But over time, templates have become really important. Obviously, kind of the big three is you want to be efficient. So and that's changing rapidly, right? I think as legal departments, lawyers, you have to produce more with less, and that's fundamentally what all this technology is for. I think there's even there's a certain amount of alternative fee arrangements that are happening more and more. I see from my litigator friends, they tell me that they're seeing a lot of it. So there's a drive towards efficiency. And the other thing that's interesting is lawyers generally have their own forms, right? There can be, say, if you're at a large law firm, it can be a department and it may have its standard forms, but often the lawyer will have within that department may have their, one form that they really love, or their own forms because they don't, agree with the department's forms. So there's a lot of, chances for efficiency, but it's very disparate and spread out. And then I would think in-house at a large company, you've got obviously things are much more standardized, but there's still a lot of contracts wandering around. So the things that I noticed is over time these big trends are how to become more efficient, and speed, right? So things are getting sped up. I'm just absolutely amazed how fast things are going. And in fact, I think the speed and rate is still increasing. In other words, the demands for clients, whether it's in-house when I was in-house, or in the company, or whether it's with as outside counsel with clients, is everything seems to be there's more of a requirement to get something to someone faster. And then you have the interesting problem of, well, great, so you want to be efficient and you need to do things quickly, but how can you do that without increasing risk, right? Because that's one of the biggest problems is, say you speed it up, but then the risk goes up and compliance comes down. So that's really not a good answer. And so fundamentally, I think that's what the technology does for us is, how do we become more efficient, right? Do more with less. How do we respond quicker? And decrease risk and increase compliance. Now, risk can be to the firm in terms of malpractice, right? And also it can be for the customers, is what the customers generally want are, let's say, the best practice terms. When someone thinks of a template, it's kind of, to a certain extent, the lawyer's view of what is the best practice or starting place. It can be one-sided from vendor, buyer, or somewhere in between, but there's some kind of thought of a best practice. So that's what we've seen and we're dealing with. And so what really attracted me to Legito is it helped with all these things, and it was super easy to use, which we'll talk more about in a minute. So what did we do before? So before, it really was about word templates, right? We were using templates. They were, did a lot of search and replace. People were doing mail merges and all kinds of fun things, but it was just difficult and time consuming. And it was very hard to configure all these things. And so what we took a look at years ago, and I've been doing this for a while, is I looked at all the solutions in the market. I remember there was, without naming brands, there was desktop applications, there were some servers and desktop, and there were some, more recently, some web-based, but they were all really difficult to set up. In other words, to take some document, create a template, right, which is step one, and then step two in that process is obviously using it. And then there's some other core features of Legito in terms of the workflow and also the management. But if you just look at the front end, which is the document assembly, you got to take a document, you got to then get it into the system as a template. And I just found all the solutions were difficult. So we stayed with, for years and years, the old system of just using Word, search and replace. But fundamentally, it's not efficient. And it just doesn't scale well, because what we're seeing is we're software people, so everything is iterating. In other words, there's lots of changes happening fast. And so you need a solution where you can quickly go in, we got to change one sentence here, add a word there, add a concept here, add an addendum, and you have to be able to do that quickly. And the easier the solution, the more likely that people will do that, because it's easy to make small changes and deploy it. The harder it is, then, well, we'll do it at the end of the month, we'll do it at the end of the quarter, let's wait till we got a lot of changes. Here you can do things really rapidly and deploy them and have them reviewed. So we were really looking for something that would really increase our efficiency. And you look, the old way works, and I think that's what most law firms do, but fundamentally it really isn't efficient to me. And I think we finally crossed over that there are products, in other words, services out there that can really help the legal contracting process in terms of efficiency. So if you look at what we do now, the fundamental difference, at least from my perspective about Legito, is it's WYSIWYG, right? It's super easy. What you see is what you get. And that's what I was looking for, an easy way to take a Word document, create a template, super easy, create a set of rules, and then be able to generate a contract from that. That, to me, is the most important thing, because that means we can automate more and more templates, right? The easier it is, the more we're going to automate. So our kind of guideline is, let's just, anything that we use 2 or 3 or 4 more times, why not automate it, right? It just is so easy. And what's amazing is, in real time, because it's software as a service, I can be anywhere. I get a call from a client and they say, I need X contract, we got to get it out this afternoon. So I share my screen and we go to Legito and I pull up the contract and we go through the questions. Does it include software? Does it have software as a service? And are there implementation services or support? We go through all these questions that are very customized, and the contract changes in real time. And so it's really amazing. So I'll show you kind of our page in Legito. Let's see if this comes across okay. So for example, we have our channel agreements, we have our software as a service and software license agreements. So we have different categories, and then there's just an endless amount, and we've just moved everything we can in here, and then you would press create. And what's great is, and then it asks questions, is this going to be an online agreement or is it a written agreement? And so they have these simple questions to answer, so the user, the lawyer usually, or it could be the paralegal, quickly knows what to focus on. And then what's interesting and really great is the way this works, which I think is miraculous, is instantaneously it'll auto change the contract, right? If you make a change here, the changes will instantly show up in the agreement, which is really cool. So you can have lots of questions and then it'll fill it in. For example, here, if you put, party A, and as soon as you put that in, let's say Delaware corporation, and you put in here party A, what I think is amazing is instantly, you didn't notice it, but it put in party A. It was so fast, you can't even see it, but it instantly starts filling it all in. And so in real time, this thing's just generating the contract, which is great. You can obviously add other things if you need additional white space in the agreement. So it's super sophisticated. That's what I found, is I wanted something that was easy and sophisticated, which is actually not hard. I mean, actually hard to find, because I'm not just not looking for sophisticated and hard to use. I want something that's really easy to use, but very customizable. And that's why we picked this product and been very happy with it. So fundamentally, what I really like is this, right? Is the speed. So I can be anywhere. It could be 11 o'clock at night. I need to generate a contract. I don't need to talk to anybody. I can instantaneously just answer questions. I don't have to run search and replace. I don't have to check for what version it is. I don't have to do all these things. I know it's the latest, and I can, within literally a minute, have the contract generated. And and from our perspective, it's a starting place, right? It's the best practice on the issues, and then we'd revise it. If you're in a company, potentially you could have some users generate a contract, and they could download and go with it, depending on what rules you put in there or comments. So that's what we're doing now. The other thing we do is, I think the future of law in terms of technology is, there's a lot of discussions about it, but it's going to be lawyers plus tech. I think it's the combination of both. And so in some situation, we charge fees for generating these contracts, because we spend a lot of time building these things, making them super customizable. And so before, that may have taken us, an hour and a half, depending on how many different contracts we're creating. And if we can do it in a minute, they can get it quicker, more compliant, the customer's happier. So we put in our fee agreements that there may be fees for certain contract generation services. And so what we find is the customers are happy for that. They see you as being more advanced law firm. They appreciate the speed. They understand that they're going to get something that has everything that you want in it, right? They know that you're not, if it's a law firm, you're just not pulling a template off the internet. You have your view on the world, and every law firm or every lawyer seems to have their own view in that document. And then obviously we would edit it before we send it, but that's how we're using it today. So it's helping us speed up the process. It's helping us being consistent with whatever our best thinking is on the language. And there's cases, and we track them coming out all the time. Should you add this clause or that clause? And we rapidly iterate our templates now, which is really great, right? Before it was very long cycles. Now it's super fast cycles. And then they're rolled out the next day. We make a change, add one sentence. From now on, we know that's rolled out. It's super quick. And so, fundamentally, I think about what are the benefits, right? I mean, why are we doing this? And it's really about the clients. And so what I find, and we work with, basically what we do is we work with software and SaaS companies. So these are very technology savvy clients, but they like the idea that we're focused on efficiency. They like the idea we're focused on standardization, because they want to work with someone who's not trying to reinvent the wheel every day. Because that's, and I don't think that's just in that industry. I think any and every industry is doing that some form internally in terms of being more efficient and productive. And so they're using a lot of the tools. I'd suggest law firms are probably, in my view, I'm not sure there's an industry that has a slower adoption of technology. And so I think that clients, when they see that, appreciate that you're out there taking a risk to, let's try and be more efficient, do something better for the client. The overall fee should be less. The product should be better. The risk of a problem should be reduced, because fundamentally we should be focused on the very unique attributes of, say, that transaction or the legal advice we give. That's, in my view, the most highest value of us and any lawyer, and not generating that first template, or not, coming up with the standard terms. That should all have been done ahead of time, and you should be able to rapidly move that, in essence, into production. So to me, it's all about doing what's right for the client. And I do think that there is more pressure, as I said before, in litigation, say, for example, on a fixed fee. And so if you're generating pleadings and documents in litigation, and you have a fixed fee, it would be great to have all those things generated with a template rapidly, reuse language if it makes sense. And then the real high value of the lawyer is making those last changes for that unique case or that unique fact or that unique negotiation, and getting that part right. I think that is our highest value and where we need to focus. And so I think the clients appreciate that and recognize that. And so it really does make us more efficient. We can do things dramatically quicker, right? And we're the kind of firm where we've worked with, I don't know, 500-600 clients of the last 10 years. So we're not, we're doing a high volume of transactions. We don't sell templates, we don't sell forms. That's not what we're about, but we're about working with clients, understanding their business, taking some of the templates and as a starting place and working with them to develop their contracts. And so there's a real need for that efficiency and that speed. And for us to make sure we're reducing our risk, right? So we don't, if there's a change, it's rapidly deployed. We're not using some old template that someone found from a deal before, and we got to check it for certain things. So I think it really, really makes a big difference to how we operate. And so for us, it's profitable. In other words, we use a technology fee. It's efficient, and I found the product is so easy to use that I look forward to using it. Versus my thought before was, well, I got to go find that template. I've got to go run a bunch of searches. Let me see how the searches come out. I got to think about what other clauses I need to add, and I got to delete things. And so I always saw it as a difficult process. And now I see it as an easy process. So I'm excited to jump in and go in and create the template. At first, I was the one creating it in Legito. Now I have a paralegal working on that, but I understand how it works. So in the future, what I like is that Legito's added a lot of kind of more core features. And so there's the comments and the management and the workflow, and we're going to be using that, but also trying to figure out a way to connect more with clients, right? So maybe have them have a facing part of the agreement so they can generate their templates, so we can generate their templates. But the whole thought is, I find I want to work with a technology company in terms of our templates and processes and document automation that is aggressively moving forward, right? Because that was the fundamental problem I had with a lot of the existing vendors, was they had these very slow developing solutions, and they pretty much were the same thing, and it wasn't going to change much. And while there was a lot changing around it. And so what I found, the software as a service and also Legito specifically, that they're very focused on, how can we make the product better? Let's see what new features we can add. What do people need? Getting feedback. And so, because once you have all your templates in there, it's great to figure out, well, what other ways can we become more efficient? What other ways can we add value to our clients? And that's what we're really excited about. The future is kind of step one is, you got to crawl before you walk, before you run. I think we just started the crawling part, and we're going to do the walking part. And then, at some point it'd be great to really have more sophisticated templates and have the clients involved in generating these. There may be different offerings we could have. So it enables, as a law firm, you want a solution that can give you a bunch of options, and that's what we really like about the product. I mean, it's changed so much over the last few years, which is super exciting. So that's just a high level overview of what we do and why we do it. Now's the kind of the time when I can't imagine going back. I mean, if someone took this away, I'd be pretty upset, because I don't want to go back to the old way of trying to figure out what goes into a template and what all the different options are. The last thing I'd like to say actually is the level of sophistication. This is really amazing. In other words, you can create very sophisticated rules in essence. So we even have images in our agreements, which I think is going to be to a certain extent the future of contracting. But all these little things can fundamentally change the whole agreement. And if you really think in a future state where someone would come to a screen and not even know what agreement they needed, but the system could ask them what they need, and it could instantaneously create, oh, well, you need an NDA, and then you need a license agreement, and you need this, and so I think there's some real efficiency here, to bring a set of rules to take things out of our heads and put them in a system, so it can embody the rules that are in our head to decrease risk, but do it more efficiently. Because what happens, and I've been reading about this a lot also, is that when you have a lot of repetition, people can forget things over time. And so this becomes also a good checklist. There's a great book called The Checklist Manifesto, I think it's called. The surgeons use checklists before they finish surgery, just because it's so important. And I think these kinds of things help lawyers to think about, do we need a third-party service clause? Do we need automatic renewal or not? And so it just helps to toggle and remind people of the issues, and then dynamically the whole contract will change, which is really amazing. So Mark, that's kind of a high level overview, and that's what I've got.
Excellent, thank you. I think we'll bring John back on. It looks like we've had a few questions come in, so let John ask those, and greatly appreciate it, Jeremy.
We'll do that. And Jeremy, thank you. That was it's always great to hear exactly how our clients use it. You said everything that we say every day, and how you actually go in and build a contract with a client online. Fantastic, right in real time. So that was really good. So we have a number of questions, quite a few for you, Jeremy, and I think we might have a few for Mark. So first off, Jeremy, what volume of documents do you create on a daily, weekly basis? Do you know? And
it's not that it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. And what templates do you use the most? I think.
Yeah, so it's not that high. We probably do I don't know, 4 or 5 a week, if I had to guess. I've never really looked at that, to be frank, which is a lot for us, or maybe it's more than that. I'd have to think. Maybe it's because it's somewhere between probably 4 to 10 a week, I would say, and what we use the most, I mean, for us, it just depends on what the engagement is. I mean, we do lots of software as a service agreements for software as a service clients and software license agreements. So those are some of the most common, but obviously in the privacy world, there's lots requests there. We, we're not internal, so we don't do as many, for example, NDAs. I would think if you're in-house, the NDA is just a perfect place to start automation. But you can do so much more beyond that. You can create very sophisticated contracts. And so for us, it's even though we're not huge, that's enough to make a huge difference to us, because it gives us another 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour a day to focus on what's important and is more valuable to the clients. And I think that's, as technology comes into the legal field, is how do lawyers work with this technology? How do we focus on our highest value add and have the technology do more of, let's say, the commoditized stuff, which is following a bunch of rules, essentially. Oh, yeah. And so that's where we use it and how often.
Well, we have a few more, and I'll combine some of them. So I guess, sure. Your extensive use of the tool, they want to know, how long have you been using the tool, and how quickly did your team adopt?
So for us, it's probably been at least 4 or 5 years. Time flies, but so I've been probably somewhat of an early adopter. But as soon as I saw it, I jumped on it so fast. I remember when it wasn't deployed that widely in the US when I first started, and I was super excited that I could even get it, because I've been looking for this for a long time. In terms of our team, it was easy. I mean, it was easy in the sense of we're kind of a tech firm, so people are comfortable with it. But I think that, I mean, you have two kind of groups, right? You have to work with people to standardize, to create the templates. But I think when those people see how easy it is, they usually get super excited and say, wow, how come we didn't have this before? But the real ease of use, I think, is when the user is creating the contract, because it's just a button and a fill in and everything just populates in front of you. And so we didn't have any problem. And so, but what's great is we have this constant stream of, from the other lawyer in the firm or from me and the paralegal of, you know, I just noticed we need to add this sentence or add a comma here or do this, and it's instantly all updated. And so these forms are iterated fast. And so that's the key thing is, because it's easy, you know, people use it. But really didn't have a problem. But yeah, if you have people that are a little intimidated with technology, maybe hard. But what I found, if you gave this to a lawyer on the user side who didn't like technology at all, and I have many friends who have small firms that are, you know, criminal defense lawyers, family lawyers, they are so far, you know, away from technology. But as some of them I've shown them, I said, but imagine if you could create that pleading by pressing these buttons, filling in this blank. You're up late at night, you've got to create something, and you can do it in 2 minutes and produce the first draft, versus even longer than it'll take you to email someone to ask them to do it. And they get, you know, they get kind of blown away by it. So I think it's all about ease of use in terms of adoption, in my view.
Yeah. No, and that's great. I think go ahead, Mark.
Oh, John, yeah, if I could just add something there. You made a point there that I think is often missed by people when it comes to document assembly. And having done this for a very long time, this is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they go to implement any document automation solutions. They don't get that the documents that they create, these templates that they create, I'm sorry, not documents, are living, right? And they fail to budget for that maintenance and that ongoing change. And what you said, that efficiency of making that change is so easy in a tool like this, right? You just have to make sure you're aware that you're budgeting the time and the effort to making those changes when they come, and realize that a template's kind of a living document, right? It doesn't sit static. You don't create it and then you're done. You create it and you're done. You use it, but then you notice the changes that you have to keep.
So that was the old world with contracts, right? To me, in templates, is they were more static and stayed static for a period of time. What I'm finding is things are speeding up. Right? Whether it's lawyers are looking at case law and finding something they should address, or they're learning about the industry, or people just find ways to improve it. Because it's so easy to do, you have this really fast iterative process, which means you have a better product, right? So people are therefore more likely to use it because they like the starting place, versus, oh, wow, that template, yeah, we haven't updated that in 9 months. I don't know if I even want to start with it, right? It's that thought that the lawyer won't have. And that's what's great about having this, you know, easy to update solution.
Yeah. No, that's all. And as you said, I think quite well, your clients expect, even in the pace of change, to create efficiencies and standardization to accommodate all of this. And you need a tool to do that. So we have a few more questions from the audience. One, it's interesting. You mentioned that you had been looking at solutions, you know, very excited when it came to the States. Was there something that triggered you to do this? You know, a lot of times we'll hear from clients, like maybe something went out that had an error on it or what have you, or maybe it's just keeping up with the volume of requests.
No, that's a good question. You know, what triggered it? What triggered it is I've always seen the need for this. I mean, I even thought years ago about creating it, but, you know, I have a day job. So what triggered it was I was always looking around for these things, and I'd looked and looked, and I'd look at the existing solution, nothing new, and then this popped up. But what triggered it wasn't really one thing, other than I knew that as volume increased, I mean, I felt, right, as volume increased, we have a higher risk of making a mistake, and as a law firm, that's what you don't want to do. So we had to have a way to manage that risk. And so from my perspective, as soon as I found something to do that, I jumped on it, and then you start small, right? You start with one thing and you grow. But I always knew that just statistically something's going to go wrong. Once you've been doing this for a while, it just happens. So if you don't have a way to manage the risk as volume goes up, it's just a matter of statistically time when an old version goes out or something like that. And I see that at clients, right? I see clients using old templates and the problems they have, and whatever they do is fine, but that can't happen, at a law firm.
Yeah, no, that's great. So one more question for you, and then I think there are a few from Mark. So all of that you just said, Jeremy, can you articulate, or do you track the return on investment? Like, do you know, again, exponentially the volume has increased and you'll be able to keep up or produce more contracts?
Well, so I guess there's two ways of looking at the return on investment: is if you're a law firm and if you're in-house. So for us, we do charge a fee to clients in our engagement letters for some technology. You have to look at your state bar rules on these things, but we have clients who found they have no problem. In other words, if fundamentally we have a mandate where it's got to be cheaper for the client to use automation, but the ROI is there. In fact, you can make money on using the solution in terms of a law firm and charge that fee. I would think that, so the ROI was easily there, but even if we couldn't get much of a fee and we're just using it to speed it up, I think the decreased risk to us, and quite frankly, there's part of the practice of law that's not fun. I don't want to do. So right. there's kind of the real ROI in money. There's the emotional ROI where I don't want to have the stress of trying to go through that and put together the contract. I want to just start with and add the value, which is modifying it. But with the technology fee for us, which they aren't very high, but it actually makes these profitable for us, and it's a win-win. The client gets something to them quicker and cheaper, and we decrease risk, and we can make them happy by doing it quicker. But in-house, I think it's different. I think you're going to be measuring, as when I was in-house, we'd have lots of people, for example, looking for an NDA or some kind of contract, and it's a different kind of ROI, but it may be satisfaction because they can quickly get their thing out the door, compliant, and what's going on, maybe because you can see in the management platform that someone built an NDA. So then you can follow up with them and say, hey, Sally, I noticed you pulled an NDA. Tell me more about that deal. But she's already working on it. She appreciates the follow-up, so you can be, proactive. So it's to be quite frank, this to me is not an expensive solution. I've looked at lots of different products, and you're getting a lot of, value for a small amount of money. If this was, big money, in my view, I mean, I've seen some pretty expensive software that, the ROI becomes a big issue. But for me, it's for the amount of money, it's a no-brainer.
That's great. Well, and you've mentioned NDAs a couple of times. I know Mark and I hear that as a very common use case, and a fantastic use of document automation and assembly in particular. And I lied. We do have one more question that came in.
Sure.
Do you automate them in-house, or have you hired document automation specialists?
Good question. So my view on that is we do it in-house, and I think it's so easy that you don't have to externalize it. And you guys have been very helpful with that. I mean, my view would be to use your resources, teach someone in-house how to do it. It's really so simple that someone could be managing them, and I think you can do it quicker. But if someone didn't want to use those resources, I'm sure there's some people out there that can help. But I find it's so easy that it's not something that takes a long time to get someone up to speed on how to create a template, modify a template, deploy a template. It's super easy, and I wouldn't worry about it if the paralegal we had was leaving and I had someone else. To me, it wouldn't take a long time to train someone else, and it just wouldn't bother me. But the job I need to do, which I'm not doing well, is I need to keep that person up to speed on y'all's latest features to make sure we're using them, because you've added a lot of things. And so I think that person needs to have their focus on, as these products evolve, how do do we want to use them? You should go through an evaluation. How can we use this? Does it make sense? And that's what's cool about it being software as a service.
No, that's great. And with our rapid development, we release sometimes usually twice a month. So it is hard to keep up. But very good to hear what you said, and thank you for all those comments.
Sure.
We do have we wrapped up your questions, Jeremy. We have two for Mark, and I think it's really, how customizable are your workflows, and then also your dashboards.
So workflows are completely customizable. There is a kind of what you see is what you get editor, where you just drag and drop the workflow stages and the flows between those stages, so that if you want to branch from one stage to two different paths, you can do that. If you need multiple approvals on a document in various stages, you can completely do that. Those workflows are completely up to you how you want to customize them, what stages are there, and what flows and approvals between those stages. And then those workflows can be assigned on a template by template basis. So you can either have a kind of a singular workflow for all of your documents, but most often different documents require different types of workflows. And so you can set those up on a template by template basis. Regarding dashboards, today you've got some things you can change in the dashboard. In that list of recent documents, you can edit the columns and choose to show or not show certain pieces of information. And then a great feature coming soon is more customization around those dashboards. So on our near-term roadmap is the ability to add and modify what shows on your dashboard page within Legito. And then along with that, today, something you already can do, say you want to view documents by matter, you can create Legito objects, which are custom objects, to have clients or matters or some grouping mechanism with these Legito objects, where those documents can be related back to a matter by a matter ID. And so you can actually have in your navigation in Legito matters with each of your matters that you create and the documents associated with that. So you've got a lot of flexibility in how you choose to view data and documents inside of Legito.
Perfect. And that was a specific question that we got. Can you group by case and matter? And you can, right, to stay organized. Fantastic. And then again, I think dashboards will be a key focus for us in the coming months and certainly next year. And we'll keep our clients apprised. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's always great to hear directly from our clients, and Jeremy couldn't have done it better. It was really, really helpful. We'll be sharing this webinar for everyone, and feel free to share it with your colleagues, and certainly contact me or Mark Settle. We're both here in Atlanta. We're happy to jump on the phone, provide a custom demo for anyone who's interested. With that, I'll wish everyone a good day.
Feel free to contact me. You can find me online at aberlaw.com if you have questions about our deployment or what's working well. We're happy to answer it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeremy. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.